How long do they stay on?
A couple more weeks. 6 total, so I'm more than halfway.
You tell any difference that it's getting?
Oh, from the day of surgery, I didn't have a single bit of pain. From there till nothing.
Huh,
Before that, it hurt all the time.
Huh.
yeah.
What was wrong with it? Torn cut your cuff?
No, all the muscles and everything were fine. Just bone was gone.
Okay.
So,
Who done that for you?
over at, Oakley. And, no, good.
We're ready to go? Okay. Then we'll start. Good morning, everyone. This is the December 3rd meeting of the Dunn County Planning Resource and Development Committee. Call the meeting to order. We have all committee members present. Approval of the minutes from October 15th. Motion. Supervisor Burek moves. Supervisor Morehouse seconds. Any comments, corrections, notes? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Do we have any public comments with regard to the agenda itself? Any public comments regarding the discussion about the comprehensive planning process? Okay. Anything come in, Tom? Anyway, yeah. We have no public hearing today, so we'll move right into number 7, staff reports, registered deeds, monthly report.
Good morning. This is the October 2025 monthly update. And we must not have met in November. And I guess I was just going to note that the Century Farm applications are now available. And the deadline for the Century Farm applications and Sesquicentennial Farm applications are March 1st. So we have those applications available in our office. I know the extension office probably does too, but sometimes we're not aware of these forms because people can fill them out if, on their own, but if they need help looking back through the ownership records, we can help with that. And then I was curious how many how many Century Farms we actually had in Dunn County. So I checked with the state fair representative and there are 178 Century Farms in Dunn County. I thought that was interesting. That's all I have.
Thanks, Heather. Any questions? I'll have a chance to look at the report online, so, okay. Survey Division, Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. My report is on screen here. You can see in October, we only had 5 certified survey maps come in, a little behind normal, I would say. You can see Sherman, Rock Creek, Red Cedar, each had 2 new parcels created, and then Otter Creek had 1. So totals are there. 24 maps a survey came in for review and filing, which was a little higher than normal. We worked on 32 public land survey system corners, and then I attended a few meetings during the month of October. So I don't have anything to add unless there's any specific questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Tom. Tamara.
Good morning. Again, my staff report's up here. October was a very busy month for us. We continue to be busy with our comprehensive plan and different efforts going on. If Tom just scrolls down a little bit further, I think some things just to quickly highlight is that farmland working land survey. I feel like we shared the data before, or at least some stats, but again, just an update is that we did have 710 responses. So that was the one that we did the direct mailing, which was a great response rate. So I think Susan and I feel really great and Chase about how that turned out. We will be following up, sharing those survey results with our that focus group, the Ag and Working Lands focus group. That email will go out hopefully today. So those results, and then we'll be meeting with that group probably early excuse me, early February. And then related to focus group meetings, obviously Susan's here today. We'll share updates on the village and economic development focus group findings. We do have the water, natural resources, and land and water plan focus group scheduled for December 16th. So, and actually we're gonna have two different sessions. So we're gonna have a morning session from 10 to noon and then an evening session from 4 to 6. So that way there's an opportunity for people to participate at two different times. So looking forward to that project coming up. And otherwise, I don't know if there's any questions about the staff report.
I just have a general question. I can't remember. I'm not sure if we saw the actual ag survey that went out. Maybe we did. I can't remember. Did you send it to us, Chase?
I think so. Yep.
Is there any way from that survey that we would be able to tell, what I'm getting at is and we know how much land is in farming, we know that sort of thing, but would we be able to tell like typical size of not just of farms, but of farm operations? So that we could break it down, like so many are in this, so many do 2,000 or above, and so many, is that something we can pull out of that survey, or is that not possible?
Yeah, I can get you an answer for you on that. I know we asked the size of operation, but it's also embedded with rental of lands. So it might be a little bit more challenging
Okay, all right.
to have an exact number. So we can always use, ag stats. That's usually our go-to is the state of Wisconsin's, agricultural statistics. But certainly I will dig it into and can
Okay,
get you an answer.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions for Tamara?
Doesn't FSA have an account for, so if you make so much money, you're considered a farm, and if you're less than that, you're not? That might be a good place to check too.
That's a great question. Yeah.
And I think a lot of that goes into the National Ag Statistics Service. So like we have access, anybody, the general, it's free online to go in and pull that stuff up. So that's probably a lot of what FSA stuff is plugged into that. Sometimes FSA with their Freedom of Information requests and things, it's a little bit difficult to get some numbers out of them for whatever reason or another, but.
And that'd be great. And if, mostly just wondering, to sort of identify trends and see what direction we're going or not. Okay.
And it sounds like, you're asking, so it's like two different questions, right? There's the acres that make up a farm, and then there's income, right? So do they go hand in hand, or, to qualify as a farm? Because beekeeping is considered a farming operation.
And increasingly people rent a lot of acreage, and we're getting more and more very large operations that are renting more and more. Not making a judgment of it, just kind of wondering to know what the trends are.
Sure.
Anything else for Tamara?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just a comment. I really liked the development friendly municipalities handout. I thought that the language in there was really nice. I like the statement, you are the duly elected representatives of your municipality, so you should decide what type of housing development you would like to see in your community. I thought that was really, really a good approach. So thank you.
I will share that with Andrew and Adam. Thank you.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Chase.
All right, good morning, everyone. Yeah, our October report's in the packet. Just a few updates I can give on a few things. So the Lake District representatives are here today. Al Brown and Tom Bills will probably mention this, but we did submit a surface water restoration grant for a project on the Red Cedar River that was due on November 15th. And then we also submitted one for a project on Lake O'Galley. So number 3 up there talks about we're planning to submit grants. Well, we did submit those, and we're waiting to see if those are going to be awarded. The other thing I'd like to mention is item number 5 regarding the O'Galley River Watershed Assessment Plan. That is a federally funded grant process that's we're coordinating with 4 other counties or 3 other counties, Pierce, Pepin, St. Croix, and us. And that was put on hold for the entire federal government shutdown with some unknowns whether it would continue. It's my understanding that we're having a meeting again here on Friday to kind of resurrect that and continue to move that forward so that funding is still maintained. So we can hopefully see that project through. But those are just a couple updates on a few things that are in my report, but be happy to answer any questions that you may have on other things.
Any questions for Chase? Mike?
Just a comment. I noticed on the agenda, it said monthly reports. So you guys have been giving it twice a month or every time we meet, right? Oh, just once a month?
Once a month.
Oh, okay. I was just confused again. Thanks.
And I think by the time this agenda came out, November wasn't done yet, so that's why we don't have a November report.
Right, yeah, yeah. So, okay. Anything else on staff reports? Or then we'll move on. Public. So it's okay with our friends from Tainter Lake if we leave them on the end of the meeting and subject them to our, the rest of our discussion, which will be scintillating, I'm sure. So let's move into the comprehensive plan review. Susan's here with us this month again. Tammy.
Real quick, if the committee is open to this, Sarah, we have a member from the public here who would like to talk about the comp plan and bring, so she just arrived. So it'd actually kind of go back to a public comment
Sure.
under that section, if you guys would entertain that at this time.
Without objection from the committee, let's do that. Sure. Would somebody like to speak? That's fine.
Oh, thank you. I'm Sarah Witter. I live in Menominee at 1932 Boulder Drive, just off Highway 29. And I just wanted to provide comment. I'm really happy that the county is looking at the comprehensive plan. And I had 2 items that I am interested in us looking at as we embark upon that. One is the treatment of our sustainability plan, which is a separate document right now and is very robust, but hasn't been updated recently. And a number of the items have been completed, and then the ones that haven't been are just kind of left hanging out there. And so I thought it would make sense to look at that document and, as much as possible, incorporate those items into the comprehensive plan, which is something we maintain more actively. And so we can kind of just incorporate those philosophies into the way we plan for the community. And then the other item is related somewhat to the data center issue, but really just thinking more long-term about how we treat large industrial uses in particular. So those types of impactful development that we often raise a lot of controversy. And if we had a kind of a more consistent framework for rating those developments, a series of metrics that we always went through: environmental impacts, community impacts, economic impacts, impacts on utility rates, all these things, and we just laid them out. I think it would give us kind of a more forward-looking approach to dealing with these different types of uses that'll come up. They'll keep coming up, whether it's more data centers or other types of industrial that wants to locate here. And they do have community impacts that we want to consider. They also have potential benefits. And I've shared with Tammy, and I'm happy to share with the board, some research I did on data center zoning ideas, ways to accommodate that type of development in a way that would mitigate most of the environmental downsides and maximize benefit for the community. And that can be things like reinvesting in a community development fund, and that's a requirement of, some sort of zoning overlay, or it could be other environmental mitigation related to where they think there'll be harm. The rates issue is a challenge because we don't have jurisdiction over utility rates, but we could potentially think about reinvesting some of that community fund into weatherization efforts, which would help bring costs down. So those are just some ideas that I wanted to share with the board, and that's all.
And no, just wait a second, just to see if we have any questions. Just, I'll offer, are there questions or comments? Well, Mike, I thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for raising those issues. We did have a presentation on that very topic last month,
Oh.
2 months ago. And in that discussion, Tammy laid out some of the zoning things, but there are some sort of ancillary ways of looking at it that you've raised that I think that we agreed as a committee that we would come back to as part of the process. So thank you for raising them.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, Tammy, is this something that you think might be talked about in the upcoming focus group?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I feel like, again, by the direction of the committee and these checkpoints of saying, what does that sustainability framework look like? And, at the committee's direction, do we start exploring what that like a continuous theme throughout our comp plan might be worth us, again, at the committee's direction, adding that scope to our project.
Okay. And it may come up today too, what else? So, please stay involved.
Yeah.
And
I'd be
if
happy
you
to.
want to share your research, that would be great.
Yeah, I've shared it with Tammy. I can make sure
Tammy
you've
can
got
send it to us,
everything.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, we're at it. Okay. And just when we've had our comprehensive plan discussions, we've not totally excluded the opportunity for public engagement. So that may be available to people too. So let's move on to the comprehensive plan.
Great. Thank you, Chair Quinn and members. Again, my name is Susan Badke. I'm with the Regional Planning Commission, assisting the county in facilitating the comprehensive plan update. Again, the county has a comprehensive plan. That plan was adopted back in 2009 and revised in 2016 to bring in the farmland preservation plan. So we're continuing to look at this plan, right, and look at all of the county's plans and incorporate them, but we are kind of doing a complete update or overhaul of the plan, including some reformatting, but continuing to look at this. Let's see here. I'm just going to use this, I think. So our focus today, we have two different elements, right, that we're going to be looking at: transportation and economic development. And hopefully folks had an opportunity to review the materials in the packet. Before we dive into discussions on those two elements, I thought it's important, it's been a few months, just to provide a project status. And Tammy did a good job updating in her staff report, I think, where we've had, again, 9 elements of the comprehensive plan. And so we're going through each of those elements today: transportation, economic development. In terms of public engagement surveys, had the public input survey that was open to anyone, right? Anyone could take it. It was online. We had a total of 538 respondents. The farmland owner survey, as Tammy mentioned, it was mailed. It was also available online, right? So if you didn't receive a mailed survey, you were still able to participate. Again, those mailed surveys were sent to landowners with 30 or more acres of agricultural assessed lands. So if you had smaller than that, you could take it online. We did have 710 respondents, and Tammy had mentioned how many were mailed as well. We also surveyed all of the towns, villages in the city of Menominee, right? This is a county-wide plan. It's not a county government plan. It's a county-wide, county being community, right? And it's important that we get, information and perspectives. What are the challenges? What are the issues? What are your, current plans? So we reached out to all the towns, villages, and the city early on in the process. That was, yeah, sure.
May I?
Yeah,
Sorry to
absolutely.
interrupt.
Sure.
You're just doing it, because we were having some trouble getting responses
yep.
from the towns, villages,
Yep.
et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So-
Yep. We had really great response from the towns, I'd say. 16 towns responded. 3 villages responded. 1 responded right before the villages focus group meeting. So I think in response, Tammy had suggested that we have a village focus group meeting, and that really was I think kind of came about from seeing the lack of engagement from the villages in this. And that village focus group, I won't go into too much detail, but it was very well attended, and some really great ideas came out of that will be incorporated into the plan. So opportunities for intergovernmental cooperation, and we already chatted about intergovernmental cooperation, right? But the input that was received from there will be brought into the plan, right? So you'll see, some of the strategies or recommendations will probably be expanded to incorporate that feedback. So when you get that draft chapter, you're going to see some additional, ideas and things brought into those recommendations. So as we move forward through the process, we're taking all of that. So that village focus group, while you're like, 3 villages only responded, and it had been 2 until that meeting, I think that village focus group really serves, and got us great information in lieu of that survey. We did also, I brought hard copies and kind of, and handed those out and said, if you want to complete it. I haven't received any back. I don't want to hound, people are busy, right? And so, like I say, I think that focus group meeting really served to get some of the information from that survey. And then the city of Menominee also responded. So that's kind of the breakdown of the surveys to date. We also have a series of focus groups. We held our housing focus groups. We had 2 different meetings, met with the county's housing work group and the housing action team back in September. Economic development, which I'll get into a little more detail later, but we did conduct a survey prior to the focus group meeting with the members of the Greater Menominee Development Corporation and the Dunn County Economic Development Corporation, some of who are one and the same. Many members kind of wear both hats, I think. So we conducted a survey to get their perspectives. What are strengths? What are weaknesses? Using the information from the 2010 plan, right, which identified strengths, weaknesses for economic development in Dunn County. And we said, are these still, relevant today? If not, what has changed? Where is your priority? Where's your emphasis? And I highlighted in the memo, some of those key findings from that survey. We also met with them then on November 19th. It was a joint meeting of the Greater Menominee Development Corporation and the Economic Development Corporation, and got some feedback, and I'll share that today in that economic development conversation. Again, that villages meeting, I think all but 2 of the villages perhaps attended, and had multiple representatives here. So it was a good turnout. And like I say, I think there was some productive conversation and ideas that came about from that meeting. The Water Natural Resources, December 16th. Important to note, that'll also serve, we're trying, and one of the key things I think when we started this process was recognizing that your land conservation department is also updating its land and water plan, right? So we've tried to be mindful of that throughout the process, and have it's important that Chase be part of the comp plan and farmland preservation process anyways, but also ensure that if there are questions or things that key questions that will help inform the land and water plan, that we're not duplicating efforts, right? That we're trying to get, as we're doing a touch point, with a survey, that we're asking questions that will also inform the land and water plan. And so that Water Natural Resources Focus Group on December 16th will also serve as the Land and Water Plan Local Advisory Committee that is required by DNR to be a part of the process in updating the land and water plan. So working jointly and incorporating that planning process into that focus group. Agricultural focus group met once, we'll be meeting again, like Tammy mentioned, and then the land use regulation is another focus group that we'll be having. So check. There we go. Okay, I went too far. So that is where we are at in terms of our public engagement processes. Of course, our meetings here open to the public. We're happy to get any emails, phone calls. We've had a few here and there. So communication lines are always open. As I mentioned at the villages focus group, like I think it's important, and one of the county's goals was that, really to just build that relationship with the villages and let them know like the county wants to be a partner. The villages are an important component of Dunn County, right? As are our towns and our city. But we wanted to make sure to bring them in. And so it's, this is we don't want the communication to stop now just because we had this meeting, right? We want to continue to build and strengthen that relationship. We also, recognize that many of your local communities have recent comprehensive plans. So there are more comprehensive plans in place beyond this. They're just beyond that 10-year kind of required update. So we don't really consider them to be current plans, right? They're older, they haven't maybe been revisited. So we are looking at, as we go through the process, consulting all of these plans. These have some really great information. What is, important to these communities, the villages, the towns, the city? What are the challenges that they're seeing? So these are a great source of information to help inform the county plan as well. So you'll see in the memo that we highlight what are some common themes or issues from those comprehensive plans that have been adopted within the past 10 years. So I just wanted to recognize those. There's a lot of other county plans, state plans, some regional plans that we also consult, and I've noted those in the memo. Not going to go into detail in those, happy to do so. But instead, I want us to focus on today kind of those goals, objectives, policies, and strategies that are built from and off of all of these data, right? So it's built off of the comprehensive plans. What do your local comprehensive plans say? What do the surveys tell us? What have the focus groups informed us? And that's so when we share draft goals, objectives, policies, and strategies, it's not, we've just put some random things together to share with you. They're built off of all of the data that we have collected to date. Okay. So in terms of goals, objectives, policies, and strategies, and I just want to run through these. One of the comments that was received at the Economic Development Joint Focus Group meeting was about what really focused on, they were reviewing the goals, objectives, policies, strategies, and we asked for their input. I wouldn't say that it was so much on the substance, but it was more on one of the comments was related to goals, right? And is the goal seems for economic development seems visionary, okay? And in comprehensive planning, the goals often are kind of aspirational statements, right? They are tend to be, and so one could describe it as that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's an overarching kind of statement. What do you hope that Dunn County is, right? So it's putting you kind of in the future, right? With the objectives then to further define that, okay? And objectives are really a list of measurable aims. Now they could be quantitative measurable, or it could say maintain or support, right? It could be maybe less quantitative than increase, ag production by a certain percentage, right? Because that's a hard, that's a hard thing to do. Now, in other types of, in a business or in a school, right, you can maybe put some more quantitative, right? We want to increase our sales by X percent. In comprehensive planning, it is a little more challenging to do that, but we try to make the objectives more detailed and measurable. Your policies are more ongoing tasks or decision-making guidance. So as you're making decisions, they're to help inform you and provide that policy so that, and inform your decision-making, right? And then the strategies are more actionable tasks. And I envision ultimately, that the formatting of these policies and strategies might change a bit, right? As I've been thinking about it, I've thought, well, and I think that Mike actually brought this up in our cultural resources discussion of, well, what can the county do, right? What is it up to the county? So it might be where we separate them out. What are some kind of county government strategies? So what can your staff take on? And then what are some more community, meaning the county as a whole, right? All of the partners. It might include the county, it might include local governments, might include partners. So that's my current thought to address that, right? So that it's not all seen as being a county staff and a county government, but kind of breaking those out. But strategies are really actionable tasks. Any questions on the goals, objectives, policies, strategies in terms of what they are meant to be? Okay. I don't see any, but I wanted to set that framework. So when we get into, next up, we're going to talk about transportation, the draft goal, objectives, policies, and strategies. And hopefully you all had a chance to review the memo. Oh, yeah.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a general observation, which I know I've made before. That particularly the objectives, it is a long laundry list
Mhm.
of not easily measurable or accountable objectives. It's hard, particularly in these two documents, which are, really comprehensive, but where are our priorities? And how are we gonna be able to follow up? There is no conceivable way that we, mostly you, can follow up on any of these to measure. So this general observation is, can't we in some way prioritize, narrow, so that one could pick up the comprehensive plan? We could keep looking at the comprehensive plan and say that, yeah, that's our priority, and here's how we're doing. I can't see us at any point being able to go back and monitor all of these over 9 separate sections. It's not possible.
Sure.
So, sorry, I don't mean that to sound as a criticism, but I just think as a directional document, it needs to be narrowed.
I mean, and to add on to that, and I think given what Supervisor Kinnear has brought up is, again, like, who does this, right? So for the transportation one, is it really getting buy-in from the transportation committee, the facilities committee, to take on some of those initiatives? Is it the PR&D committee reminding the transportation committee to look at these, right? So there are all these planning documents. I guess that's kind of how I look at it, and Susan can chime in too. All these documents exist out there. This comp plan is just trying to summarize what's in all those other plans. So I feel like, so I struggle, right? Because I feel like there's that benefit of saying, you can hopefully just come to the comp plan and say, oh, I want to learn more about this project, and then go to the safety plan and dive into it further. So I struggle with, like, how much do we at least try to summarize here? But then also hold, again, I think an ongoing complaint with any planning project is, how's it actually going to get done? Follow through.
So, obviously I have a bias since I was a program evaluator for 35 years. This is not possible to follow up, even if it is delegated separately to standing committees or ad hoc committees. I just don't see how it's possible to do it.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to follow up with what Diane said there. I'm thinking of how we tried to use the comprehensive plan in the past, and it was so general that anybody could interpret it any way we wanted. So what I see here is, well, you said a lot of things and it is more specific in some areas. I like that. But I don't get it. There's just so much. And we've gone through so many. As someone with extra time on his hands lately, I took this, the economic plan. Tom, I asked him to bring something up. And Susan just talked about objectives, goals, policies. What I did was, you can't see that very well, but I was trying to understand this one small element here.
Mhm.
He's gonna, there, well,
Well, that makes it perfectly clear.
yeah, that makes it perfectly clear. So there's one goal here. There's one goal for the
Mhm.
economic, and then we have the objectives. The objectives all work towards that goal. And then we have the policies. So for example, policy 1 on the left supports objective 1. Policy 2 supports, looks like 3 lines coming to it. And then I went down to the strategies. I was trying to understand this just for this one element.
Mhm.
And I looked down there and I said, oh, okay. So then I started looking, and you're thinking about prioritizing. Some of these things have none or no things supporting them. I don't know if that's the way you look at it when you do that, but let's see, policy number 6. I didn't find any strategies supporting it directly. Now, of course, this is me going through it and assigning policies, say this goes for objective, and
Mhm.
we could all do it differently. But this took me a long time, and I had the time, but in a month, I'm not gonna get it. So I totally agree. If we could make it easier, and I'm kind of wondering if Susan and Tammy, if you do look at it this way and say, okay, which is supporting which? And if we have a policy, is it supported by any action
Mhm.
or strategy and
Mhm.
so on? So I really have a hard time understanding as we've gone through the 9 elements because there's so many things. So I
Mhm.
finally sat down and thought, could I do it on an easy one?
Yeah.
Not very well. Thanks. And you're trying, and it's,
Mhm.
everything on there is good. It's just
Mhm.
difficult to
Mhm.
make use of in the future. And that's what I want to be able to do is, as a PRD, the people here that are after us can use the comprehensive plan and say, oh, this guides us in this direction. Help us make that decision. Thanks.
Some formatting might help that, but this document is supposed to be a statement by Dunn County of what are our values and where directionally do we want to go in the 10-year future. I'm not sure if a citizen, I mean, we've already heard from Mike that it's hard to understand. If I were a citizen looking at where Dunn County is and wants to be, I couldn't find it. I mean, I don't see it.
Mhm.
And I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. This is a very big job and you're doing a very
Mhm.
good job with it. It just, the output gets confusing. And again, I'm not criticizing. I'm really not.
This is a good discussion. Diane, you mentioned that, I mean, you use the word priorities. And to me, that is one thing that, when you mentioned that, it struck me, we really don't, it doesn't seem like at this point in time, we're able to articulate, okay, there are 150 things we want to do and directions we want, and 10 or 20 major directions. But these right now are we think are the priority areas that we want to focus on. I don't know whether that's planned to be included in the forward and if it is, could you talk a little bit about how you think about that?
Sure, absolutely. Tammy, you want me to address that or? Okay. Well, I mean, you're right in terms of the prioritization, right? And there's a lot of different strategies. In terms of, typically you see that in your implementation chapter, okay? Your implementation chapter is where all of the different strategies are brought together. So you have housing strategies, you have transportation strategies, you have economic development strategies, and that's where you would, could, right? Not every comp plan is different, right? So you could have, and I would recommend pulling all of those actionable items, right? Into a table. And that is where it is maybe identifying who's the kind of the key lead, right? So if it is, the housing work group, or it's your certain land conservation department, right? As well as kind of a timeline for action. Okay. So it might be ongoing, and then it'd be just ongoing, right? It's something that you're currently doing, but it's important that you continue to do X, Y, or Z. So many plans then will lay out short term, right? And that would be what your kind of priority action items are, or what you think you can do, right? If something requires a lot of funding, it might be a priority, but maybe it's not possible to do it in the short term. And so it's a medium term and long term or long range type of strategy. So we're not there yet in terms of the implementation piece, but we could certainly have that conversation. What do you want? If you think this is too much, right, and you think it's too many, then what I'd be looking for is, what is it? What do you see based on all of this, right? Are there certain things that you feel should be priority? Are there things in here that you don't think should be included? Right? We try to be as comprehensive, recognizing, for example, as it relates specifically to transportation, that we're looking at your highway network. We're looking at all the various modes of transportation, your bike and your pedestrian, your public transit. We did meet with the highway commissioner, and I'll be meeting after this with your facility and your transit director. So there's a lot of pieces to all of these things, as these elements as well. And so we're trying to be comprehensive in nature, but certainly if there are action items that you think aren't a priority or you don't want to pursue, this is a draft, right? So I'm happy to take your feedback if there are specific items that you say, this isn't, we don't need this, or this isn't important, or maybe there's something that's missing, right? And that's where your feedback is important. I appreciate Mr. Kinnear's diagram, because we try to do that mental mapping as well. Now, what I'll say on that is, it's not necessary. Again, policies and strategies really are both kind of recommendation items, right? Your policies, you don't necessarily have to have a strategy for every policy, right? Your policies, that decision making. Your strategies are, you need to do something to accomplish your objectives and your goals. But your point is certainly is understood. I just want to point out, I don't think that every policy has to have a strategy, but every strategy or policy should tie back to your objectives and your goal, because that's what you're trying to work towards.
Tammy, Jim?
Well, and what I'm hearing is you're challenging us, right?
Yeah.
To challenge us to make this process better. And I agree, like, envisioning this, to take a document that's, sometimes 300 pages long is scary. I mean, to challenge us to make it a 50-page document would be amazing, right? Someone could pick up a 50-page document in theory, and I'm just throwing through 50 pages, but that seems less scary. So, I appreciate this. And again, I have like all these resources laying out in front of at home now, and it's consistent theme of saying it's always that missing link of getting things actually done, turning it into action and accountability. So I appreciate the challenge, and I feel like that's where we need to go back, and Susan and I can brainstorm some ideas if that's fine with the committee. I appreciate this conversation.
And I I hadn't understood that you wanted us to sort of go through all of these and say, nope, we don't want that one. I somehow I didn't think that was part of our charge, but it can be done.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, that's a good idea. And the chart I made, when I saw something that was missing, then I went back and I looked and said, well, does this item need anything? And is this a priority? It helped me look at things and say, well, the things that have a lot of lines to them must be our priority. What is it? So it helped me kind of focus on what we're saying our priority is versus that we know it. So, and the work you've done has been real good. Like Dan said, it's not a
Yeah.
criticism.
Yeah.
I'm learning, trying.
good discussion. Time to move on. Yeah, thanks for your comments, you guys. Appreciate it.
So were there, before I go to economic development, were there any specific comments on beyond what we've already talked about on transportation? Or are the comments applicable to both, right? And we don't need to sit and go through all of these, but I think what I'm hearing and what Tammy said too is it's a challenge to us. You'd like it more focused, maybe not as detailed and meaningful, but not as maybe robust. And yeah.
I'm not sure what are you suggesting?
That Tammy and I go back to
To the
revisit these.
previous,
Yep, revisit these and work to address the feedback that's been shared.
yeah.
Specific to transportation, I was
Mhm.
sort of startled that there isn't more mention of the possibility of passenger rail.
Yep, and I
And
think
maybe you think it's here. And I
Um,
just was too stupid to find it.
General.
it's very general. I think it's general in the goals, objectives, policies, and strategies, right? And that's one of the challenges of sharing these for your feedback without you having the whole chapter, right? Because certainly passenger rail is, and I think that even came up in the survey comments as I was looking here, I'd have to see here. Public transit, desire for connections to Eau Claire. But yeah, yep, certainly the plan that is an important recognition, right? And we have drive time maps. It's an important future planning effort that is occurring that would provide alternative transportation throughout West Central Wisconsin. So yeah, yep. I think there was now I have to refresh my memory. I know that it's mentioned um, strategy 5, I feel, under objective 2, continue to coordinate with regional partners, including the West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition, WSDOT, and neighboring counties to explore intercity bus, passenger rail, regional trail connections. So that's how I unless there's something more that the county wants to do beyond continuing to coordinate, right? We could certainly include that if it's.
This is an RPC question, but we've had some arguments about passenger rail, as you well know. Is there something I'm sorry, this is insider, the WRPC Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, the SEDS document, there is mention of passenger
I
rail?
believe that there is.
Okay, might be something to look at.
I'm a little confused, Susan. Are you suggesting we don't talk about your draft of the transportation?
If there are more, if people have specific comments, I'm happy to take them.
What was your plan today?
Yeah, to talk about and go through those if there is feedback. I think some of the feedback's been shared, right? In that it's maybe a little complicated to navigate and needs to be simplified, right? And I think that those
I
comments
think
are,
those were general comments
Okay,
about
okay.
weren't they? About the plan in
Sure,
particular?
okay, sure.
I would have,
Yeah.
I don't want to skip over the
Okay.
work you've done. with
Sure.
Transportation.
Sure,
Just did, and pick out little pieces here and there.
sure.
If you had a plan to go through it, could you please go through it?
Yeah, yep, yep. Yep. And I mean, my plan was to just talk about the goal
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
then see
Let's
if
do it.
you
Yeah.
folks have any comments. So the transportation goal, draft goal, right, is transportation system is Dunn County is safe, well-planned, and fiscally responsible, connecting communities, supporting local economic activity, accommodating multiple modes of travel, and meeting the diverse needs of residents, visitors, and agricultural operations. And so again, it's an aspirational statement that kind of, is this what you want your transportation system to be, right? And that was crafted based on all of the information, trying to recognize that, we're trying to connect communities. We're trying to it's not just about your highway network, right? It often gets attention, but it is about multiple modes of travel, including that passenger rail, bike and ped, and meeting their diverse needs, right? We have an aging population that might need additional transportation assistance or transportation services. So that's really the main goal that we've put together. Open to any suggestions or changes to that goal. Is that clear? A clear goal? Do you have any suggestions for changing it? And then we've put together, I believe, 4 objectives that accompany that goal. The first really is maintain, repair, and improve Dunn County's transportation infrastructure through coordinated, cost-effective planning to ensure safe, reliable travel and maximize funding opportunities. So road maintenance, road infrastructure, and funding challenges were top of the line, the concerns that have come out in every type of our public engagement, right? How do we pay and maintain our roads? And so that you could see here the formatting is a little bit different. We tried to take that similar approach that Mike talked about because it got a little overwhelming for us even. I think when I shared it with Tammy, she's like, I'm struggling to follow this. And I said, well, maybe if we organize it objectives and put our policies and strategies under each objective, it'll help to tie back, right?
It does.
And so then, we have a set of policies. I won't go through all of them or read all of them because that would take a while. But there are 9 policies under objective 1. Sorry. Yep. And then in terms of strategies, there are 4 strategies that again work towards that specific objective. And hopefully those 4 objectives then are working towards that overall goal. So building off of that. Objective 2 is related to mobility options and equitable transportation access. Again, the aging population, transportation accommodations for disabled individuals came up in the survey as well. Recognizing that some of that, I do know you have your rural doorstop service, and that came out after our survey was. So I think that might be helping to fill a need in terms of rural transit. Have 3 policies under objective 2, and then 6 strategies there. Objective 3 is about supporting connections and multimodal transportation systems, and with a specific focus on pedestrian and bicycle improvements and making sure that we're accommodating them. So we have 7 policies and 7 strategies under there, and then objective 4 is really that safe, safety, right? And working towards, zero traffic deaths and severe injuries. And that's really where a lot of the Dunn County Safety Action Plan is incorporated into. And again, we discussed these with the highway commissioner as well, and he was happy to see that those got included into the plan because that's an important plan that the counties already have that ties in. So any comments, feedback?
Yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah, looking at the, the comments from the focus group, one of the biggest concerns is the quality of roads.
Mhm.
And I think that's partly county highways, but it's also
Local.
town roads.
Yep.
And probably maybe in particular town roads.
Mhm.
And the whole idea that as uses change, does the financing mechanism to pay for what are becoming increasingly expensive maintenance costs, is it sufficient to provide for a safe and efficient highway system going forward in the future? And I think you have to say, probably not. I mean, we're running up against it all the time, and more of our county general budget is going to be going towards that,
Mhm.
unless we do something about it.
Mhm.
But it seems like that's a big question. I don't know how we answer that in the strategic plan, but the idea that we should be, so for example, under number 5 in and I don't want to pick on ag here, but number 5 under work with the agricultural industry to allow for the transport of goods while protecting the county's highway infrastructure. Well, we should be working with, as was pointed out earlier by our comments, we should be thinking about how we can assure that every major project that has implications for highway quality and impacts, that we find some way to not just talk to them about it, but some way to address it. And there are state laws, and that deal with instruments of husbandry with regard to agriculture, that mitigate some of those impacts. Are those going to get worse in the future? Are they going to get better? But there are clearly could well be other major developments, major industrial or agricultural developments that would place a large strain on our transportation system that we may want to think about, as was mentioned earlier, finding some way to mitigate that through some kind of use regulations or permitting regulations. I don't know how you build all of that into a coherent statement, but if you can, you're much better than I am.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I wonder, and I should go back a few slides so I can pull it up on the screen. So under objective 1, which is really focused on that maintaining, repairing, and improving, and recognizing it's not all county roads, right? A lot, like to your point, a lot of it is local roads. And so there's a few things that I'd add, and I'll be quiet, but I think, policy 3 attempts to get at what you're saying, which is consider transportation impacts when reviewing new development proposals, right? That might be, that's why that's open, right? And it could, to minimize excessive road demands, heavy truck traffic, safety concerns, or environmental impacts. So maybe that starts to get at, I'm not saying it fully.
Well, no, I think it does, but
Okay.
it is. So it has to do with, do we have the tools to do that? And how do we give ourselves the tools to do it?
Mhm.
And that, I mean, these are not something we're going to solve right away, and they're complicated issues, and we need stakeholders to be involved in the discussions. But just saying we're going to do it
Mhm.
is not enough.
Mhm.
I think we have to start developing tools that we can use to do it,
Mhm. Understood.
to understand it and to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, you know, making it, now, an example would be back when frac sand mining was uh, beginning to boom in the area. And the county developed a overlay industrial zone for frac sand mines. And I think in that we included consideration of payments for improving the infrastructure to address the increased needs.
Mhm.
And I don't know if things like that.
Mhm.
You know.
Mhm. Yeah, excellent point. You're right. Yep, those tools. And that would be an action item, right? What tools do we
Right.
need? And so, yeah, excellent point. In terms of the funding, I'll just note, that's a tough challenge, right? Like what can we do to get more funding to support? So we have two strategies that we included 3 and 4 there to try to, I guess, so we
Any
could
chance we could
Oh,
like bump
get
that
it
up just a
zoomed up.
tiny little bit for my old eyes?
I don't know if you. Oh, bottom left, if you get, yeah, right there. There we maybe go. Yeah.
It's better.
So 3 is an advocacy, right? You can advocate for increased state and federal transportation aid, pursue available grant programs, explore cost sharing agreements, right? So those are some ways to additional funding. Item 4 is exploring the creation of a county level technical assistance program to help towns, villages in the city identify those funding opportunities, prepare grant applications. One of the things that came up in the villages focus group is that they don't have the resources to really know of. First, to know of the grant opportunities. Secondly, to know whether they're eligible, right? And I think one of the comments was, I have to read through 150 pages and I still don't know whether our village should apply for it. And then the funding to either the time or perhaps just the capacity to complete the application. And if the village doesn't have that, then it's the funding to hire to have an application pursued, only then to not know really whether they'll get it or whether they're even eligible in the first place. So there was a lot of conversation at the Villages Focus Group, and that's one of the drivers behind that number 4 was maybe it is, maybe there is a way, a role that the county can play in helping its local communities seek some additional funding sources.
Or make sure they're getting all the funding that's available to them,
Right.
which they may not be aware of even.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But your first point the the tools,
Okay.
yeah, yep, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on.
So that was all that I have on transportation. Any,
So I one
yeah,
more.
sure, yeah.
So I read a study last week. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I can't remember who it was by, but it was the first analysis that anyone had done of the relative safety of autonomous vehicles versus standard traffic. And it was shocking because autonomous vehicles that do not use any human control are shockingly more safe than us driving. So it's clear that as that technology improves, that's going to become, it is inevitably going to become not probably regulatory, but also just economic. It's going to become a more dominant part of our transportation system, which provides not only more safety, which is one of the concerns that we had that came up a lot in terms of, I mean, these car accidents are horrible things. And every week we read about them in the newspaper and they just devastate families. But not only that, but the idea that the county might, that there may be possible to think about using autonomous vehicles rather than mass transit as a way to provide public transportation in the future. And I don't know whether that should be on our plan or not, but maybe it probably shouldn't be, but I couldn't help but bring it up. Sorry. Yeah. Well, and it doesn't say anything about say if there are dogs chasing them. That's true.
But
Um,
yeah, your point though about other technologies, and I think that the highway commissioner even
Yeah.
recognized that, and I'm trying to find it, and I don't, I know that is somewhere in here.
Okay.
We do recognize and planning for, right, the future of other technologies, because that is important, and he specifically brought that up in his comments.
Okay. Anything else on transportation? Nope. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for all that feedback, and we will work diligently to address the feedback. So in terms of economic development, your 2010 plan has economic development items, right? And so it has 3 different goals, and I kind of cite the pages, and they're also copied and included in the memo. Guide the stabilization and expansion of our economic base, promote the development of communication with businesses and education leaders, and become sustainable and proactive with local jurisdictions. And then you can see there the list of objectives and policies. Yeah, great. There you go. And then that the right side, that table comes from the implementation chapter. That what is how things were laid out in your current plan, your 2010 plan. I envision that it will be much different in the updated plan that we're working towards. So that's the kind of the existing. Again, we reviewed comprehensive plans, all of the surveys, met with GMDC and DCEDC to get their input on the draft economic development goal, objectives, policies, and strategies. And the comment there was, again, the goal being more aspirational and maybe visionary, right? And then just there was a question about being more metric oriented. Okay. Now I will share here. So the draft economic development goal that we've put together is Dunn County. I'll also say that this was crafted in consultation with the county's economic development director. So he's been part of the conversation since we started crafting these goals, objectives, policies, and strategies. So the economic development goal, the draft goal that we've put forth for feedback is Dunn County has a diverse and vibrant economy that supports local businesses, attracts quality employment opportunities, builds on the county's agricultural, educational, renewable energy, and natural assets, and enhances the overall quality of life for residents and communities throughout the county. So again, trying to be comprehensive in what we'd like. We do have, and here you can see we didn't do the and in the plan itself, right? If you and the feedback I think is it helps to have your policies and strategies under your objectives, right? Even if the challenge with that sometimes is a policy or strategy might be working towards multiple objectives, right? So there's a little bit different, but I think that that's fine, even if it's under one objectives and it works towards the others, I think that's fine. But you can see how we currently have it drafted, and this is how you can see there that under that goal, we had 10 objectives. Now, I would argue that's a lot, right? And so perhaps, again, taking the feedback from today and really looking at how can we either maybe consolidate them. I think that they are all, the problem is you start to look and you're like, they're all really important, right? And that's the challenge. And they are all very different, right? We're objective 1, we're encouraging retention, growth, and expansion. So our current businesses, we're keeping them and we're encouraging and supporting our existing. Objective 2 is attracting new investment. 3, our downtowns. 4, having fiscally responsible growth and balance. 5, looking at the land use, so mitigating land use conflicts. 6, promoting, what are some of the strengths? Well, your natural and recreational resources county-wide can be a strength for economic development. And so promoting those. Workforce and educational partnerships, supporting the rural economy. So oftentimes our focus might be on our larger urban areas, but recognizing that we do have smaller, for example, our villages that, in our agricultural community that, can use support as well. Childcare and workforce housing. Childcare and housing were the 2 new weaknesses, the top weaknesses that were identified by the survey, the board members through the survey. All of the other weaknesses that are in your 2010 plan remained, except for there was one that wasn't identified, but childcare and housing certainly came out. And so that was in there. And then I think the collaboration, right? And fostering a collaboration, and that really is supported by, in particular, one of the strategies. So then there's a 14 policies, again, recognizing maybe that's too much. Maybe we need to take a hard and close look at what are those key policies, and then strategies. And I just want to point out a few of the strategies that I think are, I of course think they're all good. But that's because I was a part of drafting it. But there are a few in particular that I think are strong, and I think that your economic development coordinator also got excited about, and he was pleased, I think, with them, and again helped craft them. Strategy number 1 in particular, and I think let's go one more page, Tom, if we can. I'll go. Hold on here. Those are the policies. There we go. Okay. Collaborate. And again, and this ties really to many of the different objectives, right? But collaborate with municipalities, residents, and economic development partners to develop a county-wide economic development strategy that has consistent communication process. So bringing partners together, bringing our city, our villages, and the towns, what's our process for reviewing, coordinating, and advancing projects, right? Defining target industries and business types. Which align with community values, what's our workforce capacity, and so on and so forth. Identifying priority sites and infrastructure investments, outlining roles and responsibilities, and including performance metrics. Okay, and that is where certainly we see the metrics as very important, but from my perspective, to include metrics, economic development metrics in here, in the plan, in a detailed fashion, would require a lot more additional conversation. And so that's why we have put that under this economic development strategy. And when I say metrics, some things could include job creation, retention targets, right? So a net increase of jobs countywide over the next 5 years. And there are different implementation strategies that could be used to do that. Add additional acres of shovel-ready land in designated business parks, right? That could be, but to not arbitrarily assign metrics is a whole nother process in and of itself, right? And really requires a much larger detailed conversation specific on an economic development strategy. So that's why we are recommending that including performance metrics. Also want to point out, item number 4, which is review and update the county's zoning ordinance to guide specific business types. And I think this ties back, and I know that Sarah just left, but it ties back to what, some of her comments were. Clear siting standards for large-scale commercial and industrial developments and renewable energy facilities within county-zone towns. Add design guidelines that address the landscaping and the aesthetics, lighting, noise, parking, and access for commercial and industrial development to help ensure compatibility with the rural character and community aesthetics. I know at one of the previous meetings we were at, I think we rezoned land to commercial zoning district in our rural area. And so then I said, well, how are we going to ensure what protections are there in your zoning that the design of that will fit in? And we said, we really need to build that into here where we do have some design standards. And then I just also point out, strategy number 6, which is educating. And this has come up in multiple places, not just through the economic development coordinator, but Momentum West, the regional economic development group for the, about educating the public, our local officials, right, on economic development, right? What is economic development? Recognizing it means different things to different communities, but like, what is it? What's the fiscal? And I think Sarah even mentioned, balancing, right? There might be, how can we mitigate, but also benefit, right? And so having some of those conversations and how, what are some tools that our local community is, tax increment financing for our villages and city and very limited use in towns. So those types of things. So the educational component. So I'll point out, those are the 3 that I think the others, maybe, and that's just my opinion, my recommendation or my thoughts based on all of the conversation. But I think that especially that number 1, having additional detailed conversations, right? The comprehensive plan isn't meant to and isn't going to solve all of the problems. It identifies many areas that then require further action.
Sorry.
I thought 1, 4, and 6 here were absolutely great. And what's interesting in your memorandum is the real difference in perceptions of priority economic development between citizens and the people who do it for a living. And so I, a lot of the discussions we've been having in the community lately surround educating people about needs and benefits and so on. So I thought those were absolutely critical and well done.
Thank you.
So I'm thinking about this tension that arises between economic development and growth and land use and protecting natural resources and things. And I see that objective 4 and 5 are primarily the objectives that deal with that. And I see that they focus on character and thoughtful siting and buffering. But I'm wondering if that might be missing some things that are important, namely resources, right? Natural resources, water in particular. People have raised concerns about data centers in particular, about water consumption and electrical consumption. And I think that those issues aren't captured by just citing, right? That if you have a high water intensive, it doesn't matter where exactly it is, it's that resource, right? And so I'm wondering if there's a way to capture this kind of concern in these objectives.
Before you respond, can I piggyback on that? Because those are the exact same thing I was looking at here. One of our big priorities has been water. That's where we put our money and time and so forth. And I'm thinking about in the past where we've had to approve some kind of development and we talk about environment. That's general. That includes water. But I think we should say groundwater. Because that is a priority. And when we have that actually in the plan, it gives us a little more place to hang our hat when we're trying to make some decisions. And we're talking some of the things going on today, like in objective 4, underneath the economic development goal, encourage transparent, balanced, and fiscally. I'd love to see the transparent in there. Not just there, but I think there's another place. Any place that you can put groundwater or water, any place you can fit it in, and the environment, you can, but that would really be helpful. And transparent on the strategy number 1A, for example. But just, those are small things, just suggestions as for a whole plan. We put a lot of energy in our water. So thank you for bringing that up too. That was exactly what I was looking at.
Thank you.
Or I have a couple thoughts that are that fit with the ones that have been expressed. In is it 4? Siting standards, design guidelines, and the discussion about how we should worry about these things with regard to large industrial development. I would add for at least consideration that a ancillary or at least similar kind of concern could easily be adopted to very large scale agricultural developments. And we haven't seen a lot of that in Dunn County, but there certainly are counties near us in which that's a major issue. We've had in Polk County, you've had, and again, outside corporations coming in and proposing what essentially are industrial scale agricultural operations that have an enormous impact on the landscape. Now, so my first point would be that I don't think we should, and I know this is like the third rail of public policy, and I don't care anymore. But because I think that when people talk about how they want agriculture in our community, they're not talking about huge industrial farms. They're talking about people like Gary and others who are, managing diversified farms and making decent money, hopefully, but not, not outside investments and whatever. Anyway, so I think there's some room to consider that kind of agricultural development in a similar context to what we consider large-scale commercial development. The interesting thing that's happened in some of these counties, and this happened also in frac sand mining, where you have state regulations that preempt virtually every possible local constraint or regulation that might go in, except for some very limited ones. The tool that local communities have used, including communities that don't have zoning, is the development of what they call operation ordinances. And so in Polk County, I think it was 4 towns got together in response to this large development and adopted town-based operation ordinances, which deal with a lot of the design, landscape aesthetics, lighting, noise, parking, and including things like just some local oversight of waste management, and that gets into groundwater and surface water for that matter too. So these operation ordinances are passed by, the county can't do this. The county has no, as I understand it, the county does not have the legal authority to do operations ordinance. We can do design guidelines, things like that. But even in the areas where there is not zoning, towns have the ability to, I think you're familiar with this somewhat, Susan. yeah, so
Licensing.
Have the ordinance, have the ability to do that. Now, it's being, the one up in Polk County was immediately challenged by the Wisconsin Manufacturers Association. And I think that it hasn't, I think they lost, they won. But the legislature now has legislation in it which would outlaw these things. Hasn't passed yet. But there's opposition to it. So I'm not saying this is not without controversy, because it certainly is. But I think we should think about, could we in our comprehensive plan consider encouraging the development of towns to consider, or towns and villages, mostly towns, to consider the adoption of operation ordinances that would address some of these concerns. I'd like to look into that. Now, I don't know if that would, the committee we could have someone come and talk to us, someone who's doing this come and talk to us, or you as staff could do it. But it might be best to have somebody who's tried to do it to come and talk to us just for a few minutes and share ideas to see how it's working. There be any objection to that effect, President? Okay, that's all I have to say about that.
I'm gonna, I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but, kind of tying into Supervisor Kinnear's comments about groundwater, right? And we have matrices and we talk about, how we're, sustainability, how do we evaluate these operational ordinances? So a couple thoughts of just, up in transportation, we talked about a county level technical assistance program. Could the county explore a county level technical assistance program related to groundwater, infrastructure protection in these local communities? But related to that is really a tool that really is effective is wellhead protection. Right? It's not the operational ordinances, it's wellhead protection, right? That is our direct connection to our wells and showing that value to, some mapping, really getting in. I mean, it's shocking to me in the state of where we're at, we do not have wellhead protections delineated for our village wells. And
Describe what that means.
so wellhead protection, state statute will, has further, Wisconsin DNR has further guidelines on it, but typically it looks at the where's your water coming? So your water supply for the next 5, 10, 25, 50 years for that well. And then you can regulate a boundary of protection. And so land use is typically, gas stations are the, ones that are prohibited typically in a wellhead protection area, but there's other vulnerable land uses. So it's very similar to, like, we talk about sewer service planning, but it's really specific to where our wells are and really being thoughtful, purposeful on what land uses are occurring that are vulnerable to, or how vulnerable that specific well is. So Calumet, I think, Kiwanee County are examples of where they have well protection ordinances in their townships that are their tools to protect even the private wells in their community. So again, I mean, adding on to what you're saying, I think that's a missing element that, could be addressed through maybe a technical assistance, exploring that.
Oh, I like that. And it strikes me that one of the, I would guess, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to guess that most of the housing development in Dunn County, do we know this, has taken place in rural areas? Do we have any statistics on that? Did that come up in the housing study?
No.
I don't think.
No.
Like
But
housing.
you drive around the county and it's clear. People are building houses out in the country, which means they're all on private wells.
Exactly.
And it's a risk to our county that we aren't protecting our groundwater in terms of economic development, housing development, all of those things. Okay. Is there, this is sort of a separate question, Tammy, but are you thinking, so when we had that discussion about the county's role in the siting of large-scale commercial development, you said, you provided us with a really excellent summary of the tools and noted that we may need to review, if we want to address that, one way to do it is to think about it through our zoning code and definitions. And that's kind of what some of this could be about.
Mhm.
But how are you thinking that fits into the comp plan? Is that something we do sort of after we get this sort of overlay done and then we say, okay, where are
Mhm.
those pieces?
Yeah,
Okay.
I missed the boat, I guess, on the groundwater, in the economic development, right? So it's to remember that we're in economic development discussion here,
yeah.
but it is kind of reiterating those priorities. I think that would, so initially I'm just gonna say, I think we should, I feel like 4 can be expanded to include groundwater, right? Add design guidelines to address groundwater infrastructure. I mean, so I think we can initially expand on that for at least this
Okay.
section, but bigger picture, I think we keep that in mind for the comp plan overall.
Anybody else? Get more?
Just next step. So you are welcome to attend December 16th. That's fine. I don't, oh, there we go. Future will continue to refine things and have conversations. Water and Natural Resources focus group, again, that's being held December 16th here at the county building. Feel free to join. I think it's 10 to noon and 4 to 6. The
50.
two different sessions. And then we'll be continuing to schedule additional meetings. So that's all that I had. I appreciate all the feedback, and a lot of this last discussion will be helpful as we move into natural resources on December 16th as well. That's all.
Good discussion, good presentations, good information. Okay. All right. It's a long process, but it won't be, I'm feeling it's not gonna be done by the time I'm done with my job either. So good luck. Oh, so nothing else on comprehensive planning process. Good discussion. 8, Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District report. We have a couple folks here.
They've been remarkably patient.
These, they were remarkably patient for why we spent 9 months talking about this.
I know, right?
Name and address, Sal.
Up on that.
Yep. My name's Al Brown and I live at E5294 768th Avenue in Menominee. Thank you for allowing us to take 15 minutes of your time and talk about the Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District. And that whole entity started with this committee. And I felt it was important that after 2.5 years, we cycle back and kind of tell you what we've been doing. Out there's a lot of information and very few facts sometimes. And so my job here is to give you the facts and close that kind of communication loop. And Communication is one of our bigger goals. The other thing is to improve your awareness of what our organization is, what its work is, and kind of our story. And by the way, I chose not to do a PowerPoint, and so you get an outline instead. And I hope we have time at the end for you have some questions that we can answer. As you know, as I look at the committee, everybody that voted for us to create our Lake District is here. So I didn't know if there'd be any new faces or not, but that all started in March of 2023. And so actually we've only been at this a little over 2.5 years. Sometimes it seems a lot longer, but it's only been 2.5 years. And you started out by identifying appointing 3 people from the community, and then 1 representative from Tainter Lake, Tainter Township, and then 1 representative from the county. Just so that you know, I'm the only one left of the appointments. Okay. There was one a health issue, and then another was an occupational issue. But we had our first meeting 5 months after we were appointed. And as you know, we started out with no money. And as you know, money comes in later than what you really want it to be. But that first year, we went through and had our first annual meeting. At that annual meeting, the 2 biggest things that we did was establish board of commissioners, a permanent board of commissioners with staggered 3-year terms. We expanded it from 5 positions to 7 positions to better represent the people on the lake. And we approved a first-year budget was $15,000. 5,000 of that went towards strategic planning. You just got done talking about planning. The first thing that we did was put together a strategic plan. And that strategic plan, I think, was important because what it did is we had our listening sessions, we had our surveys, we took input from people that lived on the lake and lived around the lake, and they developed I would say, our 4 core areas of where we're looking at. One is water quality. That's obvious. A couple of surprising ones that showed up was the second one, I think, that most people were concerned about was sedimentation and the fill-in of the northern part of the lake. And we'll get to that one a little later. The third one was aquatic vegetation, and that can be kind of expanded to invasive species because the north end, Upper Tainter Lake has a huge growth of aquatic vegetation that we are now dealing with. So we started out with kind of water quality, and then we've branched out. The other thing that we did, and you'll see on here, is boating and safety is another issue, is that we wound up taking over a township ordinance on slow no wake, which is, you all have subjects that just keep going on, and we've been working with this one for 2.5 years. And as of tonight, we have another hearing on expanding the issue of slow no wake. And it's one of those things that some are for it, some are against it, some don't care, and you get those kinds of meetings. And but the other piece that we had was fundraising and collaborations, which essentially is communication and fundraising, and community connections. And so what we've had in our work is we've wound up with several different projects. The first project that we did that actually did something was one of the things we don't know is how many carp are in the lake. And as an environmental piece, as the DNR doesn't study carp, they don't survey them, so we have to figure out how many carp there are. So we started a carp bounty and a carp tournament this year, and to remove the carp from the lake. And the other thing is to identify where their carp are and how many carp we're getting. If we do this for 3 years and we have 25 carp a year, we don't have a carp issue. If we do this for 3 years and we have 1,000 carp, now we're striving for 90 carp per acre is what what they tell us that we should have. Aquatic vegetation harvesting, there again, that was one of those that we identified through our strategic planning as a major issue. We spend over half our budget is on aquatic harvesting, aquatic vegetation, and we have curly leaf pondweed, and that's very invasive. And the dynamic is as you clean up the water, you're going to have more vegetation. You keep the water really, really green, and you won't have as much vegetation. And so if you look at it, most of the aquatic vegetation is on the northern half of the lake, which is where the cleaner water is. So you have that dynamic of always being in balance. We do muskie stocking this year. Fish stocking is not a long-term, the species is specific is not a long-term issue, but it's more of an environmental issue in that what we want is we want balance in our fishery. The lake is used heavily, and we're stocking muskie because that is the species of fish that is not reproducing as prolifically as naturally as the walleye and as the panfish. And of course, our slow no wake, we took it over because the township was, they've had it as an ordinance since 2007, and they've not spent anything on that. And they really didn't want it. And I didn't really want it, but somebody had to take care of it. And so we've now we have the ability as a special purpose municipality, we have the ability to pass ordinances, and we do now have the slow no wake ordinances is ours, along with buoy placement and storage and retrieval. And it's one of those things, as you do something, you wind up thinking, well, I never knew I was going to have to figure out where to store all the buoys and things like that. Sedimentation is a big one, and Tom's going to speak in a second, and that's a big one, and it is one that we can talk about it, but we can't do it all by ourselves because it's such a huge project. The sedimentation, the Hay River and the Red Cedar River. Red Cedar alone from Colfax to Tainter Lake has over 50 erosion sites. And right now we're working with Chase and the surface water grant just to deal with one of those erosion sites. My goal as chairperson is that we develop a process to deal with these things, that we take this first one and see how we can manage it and minimize it. We're never going to eliminate it totally because you have a river and you have impoundment, and anytime you have moving water and you have still water, when the moving water hits the still water, everything falls out. But before we go into the dredging and the sand trap thing, you got to start to eliminate the sources of what you're trying to trap, or at least minimize them. And so that's kind of where we're at today. The one that we're working on right now is probably the biggest. It's a vertical bank of at least 40 feet high of just pure sand. And it's on an outside corner. And so it contributes a lot. I don't know the exact number of how many tons of sand are deposited in a year on the north end of the lake, but it's huge. The other thing that we have is communication. We do have our YouTube channel, has our meetings are posted on that. We have Facebook, we have a website, we have the Colfax Messenger, And this year we started developing, we have a marketing tool that we use for our newsletter, and every 4 to 6 weeks we send out a newsletter. If you want to know what's going on the lake, just go to our website, and down in the bottom, you can just click on that and provide us with an email address. And every 4 to 6 weeks, you'll get note what's going on. Our budget, we started out, we've implemented 2 budgets, and we actually passed the 3rd budget, but we started out at $15,000 a year. And you can see that's 9 cents a thousand as our mill rate. Now we can levy up to $2.50. So you can see kind of where we're at. I know there was some concern when we first got started that we were just going to tax everybody at $2.50 and just have all this money and everything else. Well, you can see as of this year, our annual meeting, we're 41 cents, 100,000. So if you take all the property on Tanner Lake and you take an average, the average property value on Tanner Lake is 250,000. That's the average. Okay, obviously there's more and there's some that are worth less. And if you multiply that, you're right around $100 to $125 is kind of what your contribution is to the Lake District on average. So that's what our budgets are, just so that you can go back and say that these guys aren't, taxing the heck out of everybody. The other thing is that over half of that budget, that 66,000 for next year, 39,000 of it is going for weed harvesting. And so there's very little overhead. We don't get paid. Everybody is totally volunteered. The other thing that we've done is that from the budget, we've had 1 surface grant. We're partnering with the county now on a 2nd surface water grant. We're going to be writing a 3rd surface water grant for more planning, and I'll get to that in a minute. So we have 3 pots of money that we're using. We're using grants, we're using tax dollars, and we're using contributions. And this year, I think it's in my notes here someplace that I gave you, that we raised over $12,000 that people have contributed to. We do have a fundraiser, and so it's just not about taxing people. All of our activities are based on research, and we do have water quality monitoring. We have partnering with Stout's limnological research and rehabilitation. The Wisconsin Natural Resources, Wisconsin Lakes, UW Stevens Point, and UW Stout Sciences. We're going to conduct a study this summer as to who's using the lake. I think it's important when you see boats out there. Are they residents? Are they non-residents? Who uses them? The next follow-up to that research then would be, so what is the economic impact of Tanner Lake? What do we bring in? And this would be something, these are both important points as we get into our grant writing for some bigger grants. And obviously, the bigger projects are going to take a lot more money than what we can actually raise. So we have that. Tom, did you want to quickly talk about collaborations?
Good morning. Tom Bills, E5408, 770th Avenue, Menominee. I was appointed by Tanner Township, and I am one of the original members as well. I don't like to read, but when I'm speaking, but for brevity and accuracy, I'm going to read most of the document that I've prepared simply to keep you guys on track. Collaborations, what I'm going to speak briefly on, are necessary because there's only 7 of us on the board. And there's only so much that we can accomplish, and there's only so much expertise that we have. During the 3+ years we've been a lake district, we've had the opportunity to forge relationships with some really good groups. We've been able to collaborate with the likes of, and I think the document that Al sent you has all of them, but I'm going to try to recap just a bit. The Red Cedar Partnership, Dunn County Alliance, UW Stout, and the Wisconsin DNR provided expert advice on our strategic plans. Dunn County has been very generous, allowing our continued use of a meeting room and the electronic equipment that goes with us. Having a dedicated meeting room allows us to record our meetings so that everyone that's interested has the opportunity to view the proceedings at their convenience. We have also been the benefactor of individuals like Chase Cummings and his Land and Water Department, who recently completed grant applications on an important project. And that project is with regards to the sedimentation and erosion problem that Al talked about. The next group are mostly sporting groups that I have spoken to over the last couple of years. These sporting groups wanted to know a couple things. They wanted to know our needs. They wanted to know our plans, and they wanted to know how we were going to approach those projects, kind of with those plans in mind. The first one was Dunn County Fish and Game, and they've donated funds to assist our efforts. Muskies Inc. matched our project budget and completed the permitting application, allowing us to recently stock 444 10 to 12 inch muskies, which will provide diversity to our fishery and provide a predator fish to help reduce the carp population. Tainer Trail Tamers, a snowmobile club, have donated funds to our efforts twice. The Downsville Sportsman's Club made a donation and invited me to speak again for an update at their April meeting. The business entities that we have developed relationship with, like Burstead Insurance, obviously Monty is providing us with expertise in areas that we can't possibly know enough about. So it's good to have someone like that on our team. Donkey Docks provides us with services in the water, and they've also donated prizes for our fundraiser. Elk Point Resort has allowed the use of their boat landing for our carp bounty and aquatic vegetation harvesting projects and allowed us to hold our fundraiser at their site. Lastly, volunteers on the lake and off have assisted us with input at meetings and have worked at our various projects. We're really thankful for the relationships that we have forged with these different entities, and we look forward to improving these relationships and adding more as we progress in our projects. Thank you.
The future kind of goals, what's coming down the road. We have to develop an aquatic vegetation plan. Obviously, you don't get to change anything in the water without a plan. And if it deals with the water or where the water meets the shore, there has to be a plan. So we're in the process of developing an aquatic vegetation plan. The bigger thing that goes along with that is the lake management plan, and we're going to begin that process also. If you think of that as taking your comprehensive plan, and if you broke it down into a smaller plan that had some very specific goals with very specific measures, and that's going to be our lake management plan. I can tell you it's going to deal with the subjects that we have: water quality, invasive species, but it's going to be, for example, What happens if we wanted to take and make Chapney Park a usable boat landing again? Okay, that would be a very specific plan with a very specific budget and something. Hint, hint, we may be talking about that in the future. Shoreline improvements, sedimentation, shoreline improvements, that's, again, going back to the shoreline ordinances, enforcement of shoreline ordinances, working with, creating incentives for people to, modify their shoreline so that it isn't, contributing to our phosphorus load. Invasive, plant and animal, that's, if you got water, you're gonna have those. The other piece that we haven't been real active because we're so young is politically active because all of these bigger projects, we can't do them by ourselves. It's going to take county and state work to deal with those. I've included a list of all of the commissioners on there, our website. Our mission is to take and revitalize and protect the lake. And that's what we're up to. Sometimes you make friends, sometimes you make enemies when you do these things. You guys know how this works. So with that, Tom and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Questions? I'm just curious, have you had to deal with wakeboard questions at all?
Yes, that's on the list and
Not, you know.
that is, right now, we're not doing anything because over in Polk County, there's a lawsuit. And, so we're waiting to see how that lawsuit settles out as to whether or not we get into that would be the next ordinance that I would say that we'd wind up with potentially.
I noticed that in looking at the Rice Lake District budget, it seemed like every year the majority of their budget was aquatic vegetation.
Right.
And it sounds like that's going to be, is that you see it, that's going to be a ongoing thing?
It's, if you want to deal with the water quality, you're going to have to deal with the aquatic vegetation. And because the invasive species is so prevalent and it's so prolific that if you don't deal with it, then you're going to have to suffer with it. And the fortunate thing that we have is that we don't have as much aquatic vegetation as Rice Lake does. So it's confined to a specific area. The other thing is, remember, when you're harvesting, that's really all you're doing is you're taking it away. You're not eliminating it. Because we're too big and the DNR won't let us chemically treat that, because you'd not only chemically treat Tainter Lake, but you would also treat Monoman and then parts south. And so that's just one of the things that you're going to have to deal with. And you're right. And just so that you know, we're also looking into probably writing another grant for a harvester. But as you know, equipment is easy to buy and to get. It's how do you store it? How do you maintain it? Who drives it? And who uses it? And we're a volunteer organization. Half of the board is retired, half of the board has family and children. And I know there are some that their spouses are not going to let them spend their summer riding a harvester all summer long. So we have those challenges.
Congratulations on
Yeah.
really pulling together what was a difficult project to start with, but you guys pulled it off.
Yeah.
Great.
Where I'm very happy. We've done, we have good people. There isn't sometimes a lot of agreement, and it's just like anything else. But at the end of the day, when you figure that we've only been doing this for 2.5 years, I think we've we've set a good trajectory and we're going in the right direction. I know Mike has come to at least one of our annual meetings and just remember our projects, we can't do a project unless it's approved at the annual meeting. So in essence, we have to have a referendum every year for
Right.
every project that we do. And if we don't get approval for it, we can't do it. And so, which is the part of the state law. I think it's good. But it does create some challenges.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think that's no actions to be taken, no reports. Any announcements from anyone? Future meeting date, December 17th. That's okay with people? Okay with staff? Okay, can be a short meeting. Okay, all right. Then we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for a good discussion.